posted to those accounts. And the transfers are just informational, just transfers between lines. The biggest one there is the garbage hauling contract, and Tiger's on the call, he could speak to that. But it's just basically realigning where those expenses are within the department. There is sufficient funding to pay for those contracts.
Everybody has this on their tablet. Any questions on the review items on the first page? I think we're good, Linda. So we need a motion to approve the few items over here on the second one. The total is 23,000, right? Is that already at 23,400?
Yes.
Okay, that's the total amount of transfers that need to be approved. Everyone has them on their tablets. I'll give everyone a second just to make sure you have a chance to see it. If there are any questions. It's not really meaningful.
And I'm sorry, so what they're transferring over to DPW tax capital, just miscellaneous capital things at DPW?
Yes, these are all DPW. Oh, go ahead, Tiger.
I think it's for the transfer station, right?
No, these are capital projects. There's some funds left in the town hall annex. There's some funds left in the incinerator project, and we're moving those to the scale house project.
That's what I meant. Yeah, the scale house project.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if there are any questions, a motion to approve those transfers. Chris, thank you. Second. Tom Schultz. Yeah, okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
None. Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks. Motion's passed. Thanks, Linda. I think that's it for that. Okay, let's turn it over to first up is Office of Emergency Management, then Fire, then Tiger's got a follow up, and then we'll do police.
So we have Russ Kimes on the call.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here this evening. We'll keep this brief. I will share my screen, provided I have the ability to. We will find out right now. The same presentation was sent, I believe, to all of you, so you should have access to it. So for the Office of Emergency Management, there we go, full screen. For the operating budget request, the biggest change here, obviously, is in the line of on-site contractors, which is down significantly. The reason is that this is for the radio maintenance, which we're going to talk about actually when we get to it in capital, that whole expense. It's been moved to the capital line because in discussion with Lunda and others, this is for software and hardware that we own as part of the radio upgrade process that was done. So that's why it has been moved out of the operating over to there. The remaining amount is for our UASI fee, which is a radio system that's used across the state to allow interoperable communications. And there's a fee that we are assessed annually for participating in that program. Police, fire, and EMS all have these radios. It's managed through the state. I think we actually pay through Stanford, but it's managed by the state. Salaries are self-explanatory, as is Social Security. They're part-time for myself and the deputy. Training is twofold to allow us, and this is flat from last year. This is primarily to allow us to conduct annually required exercises, specifically around the town's local emergency operations plan. For those who are not familiar, the Office of Emergency Management maintains, in partnership with all the other departments, including Board of Ed, a 750-page emergency operations plan. And that plan requires training in order to make sure that people know that it's there and know how to execute on it. Additionally, this line can be used for Phil or I for, of course, when approved, professional training. The repairs emergency equipment line, we have a number of trailers that are we maintain for the state, for the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We have a shelter trailer, we have a animal rescue trailer, and we have 2 mobile signboards that have been given to us by the state. We get to use them. The state can call on them when we're not using them, and we are required to provide the maintenance and upkeep. And it's very general, you know, it's tires and equipment inside. The same goes with repairs emergency equipment. We, as the CERT team in town, doesn't really fall under any particular group. We help to maintain their fly car, which is actually a older generation fly car from EMS. It's the old paramedic fly car. The paramedic fly car gets actually put into reserve status, and then we get it at the end in the third, or I should say CERT gets it on the third round. So this is just to provide maintenance. It's actually, we're hoping this year that you'll approve the new fly car for EMS, and then their reserve one will go to CERT, who is desperately in need of a new vehicle. Supplies general is pretty straightforward. The number is higher because the number is static, but that is used for purchasing things such as computers, keyboards, things that we would use in the Emergency Operations Center, which for those who are not familiar, during major incidents, the Emergency Operations Center is stood up, and it is where we centrally coordinate across all of the town's departments any disaster response, mitigation, and recovery efforts. Predominantly now it's during severe weather events. I think you've all heard the call outs. So that's, and they're certainly more frequent than I think they used to be. However, it could be for any number of emergencies. That is housed out of the police department. And actually, as part of the eventual police department redo, we are also going to be partnering with that project to get a more permanent solution for the Emergency Operations Center. But for now, it's maintenance costs. Voice and data is provided to us by IT. That is for the 2 cell phones and our share of the town internet expenses. The last item, equipment emergency, is up. The reason that it is up is we are twofold. First, we are looking to purchase some new computers. This is as opposed to maintenance activity. This is new computers for the EOC. We have very old iPads that I think were bought in 2012. The iPads themselves actually won't even download new software. They're so old. So we're looking to replace them with actual computers that, in partnership with Chris Kaiser, that will have, just basically there'll be virtual machine windows. Those can be used by staff, particularly volunteers, usually CERT, who will be manning stations during events at the Emergency Operations Center to do things like answer the phone bank, to be the call-in center, to provide updates to the town, to allow them to log things for us as scribes during an event. Additionally, there's some funds in there for CERT. The CERT team has asked us for help in making sure that their personnel are properly equipped. They've been very successful over the years in raising donations, and we would like to help them to, at the very least, get some ANSI reflective vests. I know the amount of call outs that they have had has been unbelievable this year. Everything from the dog, helping to tend with the dogs. And I know we went down there and they were in various forms of civilian attire in the cold. So we wanted to make sure, especially if they're going to be out at an incident like a storm out on the road, we want to make sure they have something that's OSHA compliant, visible, and also, protects them appropriately. So that's what that increase there is. I will pause. I don't know if you want to go through each section or you want me to go through everything and then come back. I don't know. What's your pleasure, Todd?
Go ahead.
Myself on mute. You know what, Russ? Why don't you just go through the slides and
Sure.
then we'll stop at the end for questions.
Absolutely, happy to. Capital budget. There's 3 items that are requested. I'll go through the 2 ones on the bottom, the smaller ones first. The electronic sign, which is the variable message sign. As you are probably aware, the town has a number of electronic message signs that we use. The 2 that we have are actually given to us by the state, and at any point they could say in a major incident they want to use them. We do not technically own them. They are used for everything from the 4th of July directing traffic to providing information as we had the COVID pandemic going about, where to sign up for shots, where to get information. This is done in partnership with Tiger, who provided us a recommendation, and Tiger's team is awesome because they're the ones who actually get it to the site. They maintain it. They start it up. We've requested 1. Ideally, we would request 2 so we could have 4 of these. But we're trying to be conscientious, so that at least then we'll have ability to get at least 3 sides of an incident or 2 simultaneous incidents. Actually, one of these boards that from the state is actually up on West Road now because the road is blocked and they're doing construction. So, Tiger, anything you want to add on that one?
No, Russ, I think you did a nice job. We get more requests than we have availability of signage. And then we have to tweak that back out again. So you can imagine we had COVID, query and drought. And then at the same time we had the storm, right? So you had road closures associated with Isaias, and then we had Aquarian where we were mandated to put up drought warnings, and then we had COVID because we're doing COVID testing and things like that. And that's just right now. But normally on at any given time, we have more requests than we have signs. And the two that, as Russ mentioned, the two that we have are actually, if somebody else needs them, and we have to give them away. And then if we need them, we got to find something for ourselves because they're already using them, if you understand that. So
and, if, you know, in an ideal state, we get more vaccines. Just think of setting up a major vaccination site. If you don't have this kind of communication for a line of cars, that's an individual police officer tied up talking to every single person who drives up. So they are tremendously useful in that regard. So that's the electronic signs. As we said, we put one. We'd like two, but we put one, and then we have in our 5-year plan another one. Generator packs, $6,250. The intention here is this is 5 packs or 5 generators with a fuel can as well as a lighted extension cord, again, in consultation with Tiger. And we really appreciate Tiger and the Highway Department as well, their partnership on this. One of the biggest things we get asked during long duration power outages, and I think everyone is aware with the way that the weather has been lately, storm duration with power outages are 5 days or more, are in particular our elderly and impaired. They may have household generators, they may not. To be able to have the ability for those who are in most critical need to get them through the night and make sure that their oxygen or whatever else is still working would be a tremendous ability for us as a town to do. So we're requesting 5, and then in the out years, in a couple of years, we're hoping to come back for another 5. Again, done in partnership with Tiger, who has been kind enough to run point along with, I think it'll be the other first responder agencies as they hear, or we hear in the emergency management in the operations center of those needs. Tiger, anything else on that one?
Again, exactly what you said. We went out to a number of visits for people who had power outage for our vulnerable populations with Eversource. And if we had these while we're bringing the Eversource men up to see exactly what's going on, we'd be able to give them a generator and a power and then know that they're safe and sound. You know, you've got a 85-year-old man taking care of his wife who's 85 years old, but she's in a wheelchair. They have no power. They have nothing. They've been out for 5 days. It would be really nice to go in, be able to hook up their air conditioning and a refrigerator and possibly a couple of lights. And then we know that they're good for at least a couple of days until that power comes back on. So
we're cognizant this is nowhere near enough, in a major incident for everybody, right? But we're going to have to prioritize, and we're going to work also with legal to make sure that we're not exposing the town to any risk, because, with the electrician and that end of it. But we're working through that right now. But that is something we would like to have as a capacity during emergencies.
So with those generators, how long will they run with the Eagle fuel can? How many hours of operation do you get?
I know
that Honda's pretty stingy on gas. Mm-hmm. The 2200 is pretty stingy on gas. So you can get it really depends upon load, George, right? Yeah. So if she's running full out, but we would look to size it down as far as, a refrigerator and a couple of lights isn't going to be full load. So it would go half a day or a day or more. And then that fuel can will fill it back up again. They'll probably get 2-3 days. We might have to go back around and fill again. Mm-hmm. Eversource, this is kind of sistered off of what program that Eversource has. They do it for the most vulnerable, and they have some that they go out and do. And this is basically sistered around that program about what they do in order to take care of the most vulnerable people. They'll go out and actually give generators to them. This is the secondary, the second tier, so to speak. And over the past couple of storms, it's kind of scary to go on a well visit and then see them sitting in the dark, and they've been sitting in the dark for 7 days.
So is the idea that you'd set them up? And I absolutely think this is essential, but you set them up and then someone would circle back in a day or half. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'd have to come back and make sure that they had gas. We'd come back and visit again, and just to make sure everything was okay and running smoothly.
And this is something we could partner between all the organizations. So, if highways out, obviously they're going to be tapped, getting roads cleared. Between CERT, between volunteer fire, the fire department, there's plenty of agencies that can step in and help as well. But to have the capacity is a good start, right?
It's about 4 gallons a day. You have to fill it twice.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go. That's the answer.
Do you know how long they last? I mean, I think it's a great idea. Do you know, Jim?
The equipment itself, you do the preventive maintenance on them, they last 10 years. What do you say there, Tiger? I mean, we've had our generators with fire outs forever.
If you run them dry, and check the oil before you put it away, it'll go forever.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the generator packs, unless there's any other questions on that one. So the last one is a Motorola hardware and software update. And actually, there's an update since we submitted this. First and foremost, I think everyone is aware that we did a large capital project, and it was a tremendous boon for, and I speak my personal experiences from the firehouse and first responder, that improvement to our communications infrastructure in town, that we did the capital project to improve and move to a modern system. The old system of radio that we had, I like to joke, was based on transistors and certainly not digital by any stretch of the means. So this moved us to a new backbone, which is, just as everything is nowadays, the consoles, all of the equipment is based on computers, right? And there's software updates. There are certain points where pieces of hardware in the infrastructure reach end of life, or reach a point where the software cannot be run on that hardware anymore. I think as the same analogy, your iPad, it gets to a point where it's so old you can't download the new operating system, and then you can't run any of the software on it. Motorola, so we use Northeastern Communications as our principal maintenance, and as well as partner in maintaining and running our system. They're also our advisor with regards to negotiating with Motorola. They're a licensed Motorola service provider. Motorola, we right now are paying the $40,000 or $50,000 bare minimum, which is with Northeastern Communications. They keep the lights on. If we have a problem, they'll come out, address it, and tell us what's wrong with it. There is no part of that $40,000 annual agreement that replaces equipment, updates the software, or when things reach end of life that is hardware, replaces that. I think the last budget cycle before Phil and I came to emergency management, there was a discussion around, this 5-year contract, which from Motorola provides advanced replacement infrastructure repair. Basically, they will proactively put the latest software, and as hardware becomes out of date, they will replace it without a cost. That's part of this 5-year plan. The reason the number here is higher than the out years, which you see are here, 133, 136, and 139, is we did not do the first year. And there's a bit of a catch up because they split the cost of this over 5 years. I will be the first one to say we are not happy with the level of transparency that Motorola has provided us. Northeastern Communications has been fantastic as an advocate for us. This number actually has changed since 2 days ago. I had a conversation with Northeastern. It is now down to $197,000 as opposed to $253,000. So we will make that adjustment accordingly. Our recommendation is that we do get the advanced replacement, full monitoring. The other benefits to this is if the system goes down now, the only way we would know a node or a particular radio site goes down, in police dispatch, there's a panel that the dispatchers are monitoring that would go red or green depending, and then they would notify NORCOM if there was a problem. In a major incident, they're answering 911, they're answering radio calls, those things could go unnoticed. Whereas the Motorola contract, they are through their centralized service center and over the internet monitoring it. And as soon as something goes wrong, they dispatch someone. The reality here is I have been pushing Motorola through NORCOM to tell us what is the other choice here, right? If we don't do this 5-year contract, what does the capital outlay look like? When will the pieces of equipment go? What do they cost? When does that happen? What does the software future look like? And they've been unable or unwilling to provide any feedback or real numbers behind it. I spoke with Trevor Roach, who's chief in Stanford. They also shared their frustration with Motorola for their lack of transparency. Stanford, it switched to the state of Connecticut backbone. And I'm sorry, I don't want to get too techie on this, but I think it's important to know. They switched to the state of Connecticut radio backbone. I just found out about this in discussions with them a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to continue to explore that with NORCOM to see if that's feasible based upon the equipment that we have now. And the working group for this is, it's Stuart Salabini, John DiFrederico, myself, the NORCOM folks. We are going to continue to push this. Phil and I are in agreement that, we want to exhaust every other option before we commit to paying for the 5-year plan. And I don't think we have to pay the plan until later. We heard, and I haven't gotten solvency on this, May timeframe. So we've got some time to work with. So that's what this is. And I know it's a big number, and I just want to reassure you that Phil, Stuart, myself, John, as well as NORCOM are really pushing hard on this to get transparency. So that's where we stand. So this number is not 253. It is now 197,010 and 54 cents.
Russ, can you make sure that Linda has that number?
I will absolutely, yes.
We have to button everything up by Tuesday night. So we've got to have that. Make sure he has that. Maybe Josh. Maybe
it's
Josh.
197,101.
197,010 54.
010. Okay.
54, yeah. And I will make sure to get that to Linda. Like I said, right, literally a day before this presentation, we're to prove that we are pushing to get this.
As long as it's going down, it's completely fine that it's late.
Understood.
Just one question. First of all, thank you for that. And I don't know if there are any questions by the board. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for all that you're doing. Do you need anything else? Is there anything else on the wish list? That you feel like you're not covering tonight? That'd be my first question.
I mean, the two big ones we mentioned was ideally we would have double the generator packs and one more of those signs. That would be right off the bat. We are waiting for the police department project for the really big project we would like to do, which is the replacement of our operating center itself, right? Our operating center is we use a conference room at the police department. All the equipment gets carried out from a closet. A lot of it breaks every time we do that. Much to, I'm sure, Chris's chagrin. Chris Kaiser has been wonderful to help us with that. So that is on an out year thing that we are looking to do. Okay. The other thing I was going to mention, and I want to highlight, I didn't bring this up, on the 5 year, next year, we decided not to do it this year because we were cognizant of the large capital ask around the radio infrastructure. Next year, we would like to begin the process, and this year do the research to get a RFP for replacement to our incident command trailer. For those of you who don't know, we have an incident command trailer that's behind the police department. It has mobile telephones, it has the computers, it has workstations. It's used at long duration, large scale incidents. Think of we have a major fire in downtown like Ridgefield did. You could use it as your command post and also a rehabilitation place for firefighters, EMTs, first responders. It also serves as a backup emergency operations center. So the reality is you have to have more than just what we have at the police department. Heaven forbid there's a bomb scare at the police department. Now we can no longer get to our emergency operations center. So having that redundancy is very important. It's also used at things like the 4th of July as the central point of controlling all of the public safety during that event and any other major events like that. The current trailer has an ant infestation, the roof is leaking, and a number of other problems. It's probably, I can't even tell you how old it was. It was, I think, got on a grant, probably 9/11-ish, and it is well past its end of life. So that, I mean, if there's anything beyond another signpost, the big ticket is the incident command trailer.
Were you working that out with Tiger?
Say that again?
How are you working that, resolving the trailer issue?
So the trailer, we are bringing it down to highway to try to patch it as best we can. But I mean, I think anybody who's
don't put equipment at risk. Look, don't put equipment at risk for the sake of the cost of the trailers. Just think about that and make sure you know where you want to go on there. Any other questions by the board?
Go
ahead, Neil.
I'd like to just go back to this generator pack thing. For some reason, I'm imagining, an older couple alone, and so they didn't make the priority cut. It'll be that tight that we're actually saying no and leaving some people in the dark who are elderly.
Invariably, depending on the size and duration of a storm, there is the possibility, of course, that we only have 5 and we have 19,000 residents. We're going to have to create a matrix within emergency management that is going to say these are the tierings of prioritization. I would rather have the capability, because we know that we don't have that kind of responsiveness from Eversource, especially the first several nights of an incident.
Yeah.
I would rather the town have the capability, even if limited, than not be able to do it at all.
Yeah, I think Neil's asking you, why don't we have 25 or something?
That's exactly right.
Got it. Sorry, the other side of the coin. I think the only reason is that we haven't asked for this sort of thing before. I don't know if OEM has ever had a capital budget request, so I was trying to tread lightly.
Oh,
We had originally thought 10, Neil, and then we cut it back. We originally had 10 when we were, the original thought was okay, 10, and then we dialed it back to try to stay in bounds.
okay, so
What is the cost if we go to 10?
Just double.
Grand.
Just exactly double, or is there an efficiency?
Not really.
Not really?
No, because it's a package deal, right? It's the generator, the cords and the tank.
Guys, I mean, if you think it's 10, I can tell you right now, I can't imagine anybody on this board that thinks it's not a good idea to get 10. I'm seeing they're all nodding their heads. I mean, so I think our counsel to you, right, Tom? I mean, I think the counsel to you is if you need 10, just get 10.
Yeah.
I might also add, just with respect to the sign. So if you had the extra sign, in your estimation, I don't, Russ or Tiger, would you still expect that the number of requests would outpace the number that you could satisfy even with the additional sign?
Yes. I would say
it's close,
yes.
But we'd be
it
getting
depends
closer.
on whether we lose the state ones.
Yeah. If we lose the state ones, we're way behind the 8 ball. If we get the third one in, that fills the gap pretty big. Russ is right though, because you have 2 incidences, and normally, like if we're closing a road, you want to have north and south or east and west, right? So you want to have 2, and then you have 2 others. But the third one's a definite. It definitely fills the gap.
So we are, and to be clear, what we have in our current request is that third one. I mean, ideally we would get 2. That would be the ideal state. So then we would have 2 from the state, 2 of our own that we own and manage.
Yeah, look, I'm just trying to, strike the balance here. Obviously, the wants and the needs of the town are changing. We're in a different time. We're in lockdown. We're going to be emerging from lockdown. But who would have thought that we're going to be, kind of coordinating and administering vaccines and all those sorts of things? Just trying to get a sense of, where this is obviously more than 10 little portable generators. This is a much bigger number, but I'm just.
The other thing, it's an interesting fact, is the Emergency Operations Center has technically been active and partially mobilized for almost a year now. I mean, who would have ever thought that would be the case?
Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. So Russ, the Motorola radio hardware software line has 3 years out in the 5 years. What does those represent?
So their plan, the package, is a 5-year contract that you pay over those 5 years. And so, and again, the 5-year outlay, I don't think has all of it, but what I can do is, when I send Lunda the updated numbers, it's 197, 133, 136, 139, 143. That's the life of the plan. Mm-hmm. And what they will do is replace all of the software and hardware, anything that happens, as well as the on-site maintenance and everything else. They basically, they won't give me the information. They're obviously taking some estimates of what the hardware and software will cost and spreading it out over that period of time. Unfortunately, I don't have visibility into that, and we're working to get it.
So Russ, is Motorola the only provider?
Yeah, in this provider? Unfortunately, as far as this kind of infrastructure goes, they are the biggest player and the pretty much only player. There are other groups that make the radios, the handheld radios, the vehicle-mounted radios, such as Harris and these other groups. But as far as the actual communications infrastructure, they are the big dog, as it were. The only option, and we are going to research this, is the potential of leveraging the state backbone, adding our equipment to the state's backbone and connecting it all together, which we could do now, right? Provided that we have to do more research to see that the board that we bought or the console that we bought is compatible with the state architecture. But because it's computers now, it's wiring, right? It's not as difficult as it would have been. So I'm going to work with Stanford and the state to actually drive around town with a radio and test that network out, see what the coverage looks like, and work with Norcom to identify that our system could potentially flip to it, and then do an analysis of the costs.
Well, look, at least do the homework, because it gives you opportunity to provide leverage back to Motorola and tell them that you're ready to move.
100%.
Other questions? Tom, did you have a question? Your hand was up.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that the radio infrastructure is for police, ambulance, fire, emergency. Am I missing anything?
Public Works, is Public Works on
Public
there,
Works.
Tiger?
Yeah, we're on that. Yeah, we get to talk to your Chucks as well.
Yeah, but you're not mentioning ambulance corps, but that's implied.
Yeah, police, fire, EMS, Public Works.
Is there anything else in town that that uses a radio system that could piggyback off of this purchase?
Not that I'm aware of. CERT uses radios, but they're point to point. They don't need the ability to talk across town. Yeah, I mean, it's not a problem. We have the UASI radios for them to use if they need it. I don't know what schools uses for the buses, but I think that that's handled by their own, by the subcontract. But again, I don't know. I can't speak to how they do it. But those are the principal agencies that need that communication.
Other questions? Thanks, Victor. Well, look, I think the feedback you got, well, I guess I have a question. How many requests did you get for a portable generator in the storm in August?
You know, because nobody knew, you know, nobody it wasn't thought that we had them. But I can tell you just in the last winter, we had the blackout, the small blackout of 300 people. I had the phones pounded over for the, you know, the OEM line to the cell phone here at my house. And I must have gotten 60 calls of elderly people without power. And, you know, there has to be a balance of, do they have, you know, impairment, things like that. But it's a compelling need. Can
I make a suggestion just for tonight? I think you got great job, by the way. And thanks for all that feedback. You got the go for 10. So just get 10 up from the 5. But I think you should come back, guys, in 6 months and think through, do we really need 50? I don't know. I mean, they're $1,000 each. It's an amazing service for people that are in need. And I don't think we need 2,000, but we might need 50 or something. Just think about it. You ought to live with it a little bit, but let's get to 10 at least and have a little bit of protection for some people. I think everyone's agreed with that.
Yes.
And on the sign, Tiger, I'm not sure what you're asking for. Should we wait on the 4th sign, or should we?
I think you wait on the 4th. Okay. You know, I think we're going to be 75 to 80% satisfied at the 3. You know, to Tom's question.
Okay.
And then we can, you know, assuming that, as Russ mentioned, they don't ask for them. They haven't really. So I think we'll be, you know, and then we'll quantify the number of requests, you know, per year, and then whether or not we were able to satisfy.
Okay. So look, it's a $20,000 expense. If we had an emergency, you needed a special appropriation, we could figure it out. How long does it take to get one?
They're pretty fast.
Okay.
But on the sign, just one quick question. Don't we have them tied up on West Road? So it's as though we're short signs now. I mean, I don't know.
That's it, Bob, to your point. Yeah, what winds up happening is a lot of them are long duration, right? So the Aquarian drought was like 3-4 months of one sign, you know, or more. They actually wanted 2. We gave them 1 because we could only afford the use of 1. We needed 1 for COVID testing, and that COVID
and the
testing
West Road is going to be there for a while. So I feel like $20,000 in the different world that we're in, you know.
Yeah, again,
I don't know. I feel as though we should pony up $20,000 now for another sign. Vaccination. I mean, who knows what, you know, the point was made before eloquently, but I'm for another 20,000 for another sign.
I think George, Amy, I've seen your heads.
It sounds good. Is there any issue in storage space for any of this stuff? I just asked that. I mean,
not for the two extra trailers. No, we have room down at our yard for those.
Okay.
Most of the time they're deployed, right? So, you know, they're not even taking up space in the yard.
There you go.
Yeah. So. Look, guys, we got to have safeties in the budget, right? Isn't safety always in the budget? You got to have safety in the budget. So I think you heard 10 generators and get that extra sign. And then just, again, tie this out, Linda and Josh, make sure we capture all this from a expense or capital point of view. I don't know whether we'll bond or tax.
Understood. And I'll make sure to update the new lower cost for the service contract.
Now, you're not covering the ambulance corps, I noticed. I didn't realize that. I thought that was going to be covered tonight as well. The budget's excellent. It looks like it's about 2%. Do we want team to come in? Usually we get a great update and overview of the number of calls and so forth. And if that's not now, which is fine, we can have them come in Tuesday after the public hearing. So thoughts, their budget looks great. I mean, the first selectman's on. Kevin, were there any issues with any questions you wanted us to vet on the budget with the ambulance corps, or everything was looked good, I think?
Well, the selectmen actually added money because they thought we weren't covering some of their operating expenses that we should be. So we increased their budget.
Yeah, I have it in front of me. But was there anything else? Is there anything else that we need to know, or?
No, they get a lot of donations. So,
yeah.
So.
Okay.
And we get hundreds of hours of donated time. So
maybe I'll do this, Tucker, just to move it along. Could you just reach out to them and see if they'd like to present on Tuesday? We'll leave it at that. I don't think there's a need on our part in the sense that there's numbers to discuss. On the other hand, we love to hear the update. Usually it's a great and important update, and one of the most important services we have in the town, right? So we'll leave it up to them.
Yep, I'll reach out to Nancy Upton and Barb Clayton.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, Russ, anything else, Tiger, on this one?
Good. Nothing, and thank you again for your support. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who's been involved with emergency management for the last year. It has been a year. It's unbelievable that it's been activated that long, and between the Department of Health and all the other 8 town agencies, it's just been an incredible showing of effort and work for the betterment of the town.
Thank you. Yeah, great job. I think we got to a good answer there. I think that was right to add some of those things back. Good. Okay. Or in. Okay. Thank you. Who's up next? Jack. Fire Department.
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to also share my screen.
Thank you.
I sent out our annual report earlier in the year, which gives all of our statistics, everything that we've done, all of our calls, budgets, things that happened during the year, which answers most of the questions that people generally ask us, just in order to make it easier and get through the presentation a little quicker tonight. Our overview for fiscal year, the current fiscal year-to-date accomplishments. Our replacement rescue truck is currently under construction up in Watertown, Connecticut. The chassis has been delivered and they're building the body right now. Due to COVID and some other issues, we expected it to be delivered in March. It's been pushed back to September, but the work they're doing is really good, and we're very pleased with the progress we've made. Fire Marshal Baker retired this year, and Paul Payne came over from the building department, is now our new fire marshal. We've been able to maintain our operations under pandemic conditions, which was trying at times. The fire company helped out with the Operation COVID Shield, which was personal protective equipment distribution in the region, which was basically Fairfield County. They did an incredible job of sharing equipment or distributing equipment. A lot of it was produced, paid for by Grace Foundation, and we assisted them with distribution in the region. And our volunteer roster is stable. Our goals for the next fiscal year is to create an assistant chief position, which has been funded by the selectmen. We would like to fill the currently vacant inspector position, which became vacant due to Fred Baker's retirement, and we did some promotions. We want to enhance our water supply system, which is our dry hydrants and the municipal hydrants. Improve volunteer retention and recruitment, which has been very difficult under COVID. Hopefully we're going to be able to drop our restrictions sooner than later, and we can progress with that. Maintain our current level of service and enhance our regional partnerships. Our performance measures are very simple. Maintain a low property loss and civilian injury rate from fire. We had a very good year so far. Increase volunteer retention and activity, and continue to update our pre-plans. Let's get into the budget. Revenue, we don't have any revenue to speak of. Occasional donations, so we consider our revenue as being zero. Our total operating request this year will be $3,973,456. 97% of that is non-discretionary. Most of it's covered by contracts. 3% of it's discretionary. It's a $94,115 increase over the current year. We increased non-discretionary by 4.2%, and we reduced discretionary by 11.2%. And this is basically a graph that just shows you where the money goes, things that we can control and things that we can't control. Budget drivers, line item increases, $138,000 in increases, but we also had $44,000 in decreases, which is a 3.6% increase over the current fiscal year. And these are the lines broken out. Full-time salaries went up $23,000. Part-time went up $32,000. The reason for the big increase there is because our administrative assistant went to a part-time status and her salary was transferred from full-time to part-time. Salaries, overtime, and all of the overtime lines, we did 3-year averaging to try and come up with the real actual, and that's why these numbers changed. Promotional testing, we had to bring the number up a little bit. This is what we actually paid for it. So it's dollar for dollar what the actual cost is. Retirement benefits, educational incentive is a stipend that's paid to career personnel for certifications that they earn during the year. The more certifications they earn, the more the stipends are. So we had an increase in that. Electricity and utilities, those are basically from guidance from the town. Reductions, doing 3 and 5 year averaging. You can see the list of reductions that were made. A lot of it was by guidance. Callback has gone down a little bit. Repairs, the equipment we have is newer, so we're spending less money on repairs, and we've been able to trim the budget in order to keep it in line with the best guidance that we have. Fees and fines. We do fine people for multiple false alarms, but the fire marshal's office is very good about contacting people that have alarm problems, and we get them fixed relatively quickly. So we levied very, very few alarms. For plan reviews and consultations, the fees for that are collected by the building department. It's all one big fee. If you want to get a building permit or do a building in town or do a renovation, it all goes through those fees there. And blasting permits, we issue probably about 1 a year. They're $60, and that's pretty much the only income we get. The fines and the blasting permits are regulated by the state. We are at the maximum for those, and we really have very little control. This is just a graph that's showing budget progression over the past 10 years. The top one is operating budget. You can see that there's an upward trend due to inflation usually and CBA increases. The bottom one is the graph that shows the large spikes in that budget are when we have to buy a new truck. Our capital costs are usually pretty low unless we have a very big ticket item, which is usually the trucks, and we don't have one in the budget this year. And this is the actual budget. I think you all have it in front of you on your tablets. If you had any questions, I can answer those. And I can get into capital. If anybody has any questions on operating, we can do that now, or we can talk about capital.
Actually, why don't we just take a second on operating? Any questions on all the operating figures? And again, this is all on your tablets. Tucker, help me to see if anybody's hand's up.
I have a question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Are the 2 new positions that you referenced earlier in your earlier slide, are they in the operating budget for next year?
They are. The vacant fire marshal's position is still in the budget. We're not paying the salary right now because we do have a vacancy. The new assistant chief has been funded for 6 months. The Fire Commission plans on hiring an assistant chief in January of 2022. Okay. So there's only 6 months of salary in there. And plus, since we transferred the admin's salary out of full-time and put it in part-time, the full-time number does not look very big because there was a negative and then a positive.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? I have 2. One, how many calls did you have? I forgot from the book, but how was the volume over the past 7-8 months? Up, down?
Pretty much stable. We didn't have any big jumps due to COVID.
Right.
Let's see. We did 1,183 calls in 2020, which was up about 50 calls from 19.
Okay.
So the trend is kind of relatively stable. The COVID emergency did not really cause very much of an increase in our run response. EMS, that would be different, but we don't do very much EMS. We only help out when they need us.
Okay. And is overtime down a little bit? I'm trying to compare the numbers here. Is it flat, down? What's your overtime looking like?
It's relatively stable. The line items are all moving around because we're using it in different ways. We had 2 vacancies. We had 2 retirements, and instead of people taking vacation in the holiday, we've been paying it out of the other line. So that line, we've had to transfer money a couple of times just to move money out of full-time or out of the holiday or vacation lines in order to put it into the other line, which is where we're paying. We don't have a line for retirements, so we just move money around that way, but it's relatively stable. We should finish the current year on budget.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go into capital.
Capital, it's basically replacement of current equipment. We have to replace some SCBA bottles, which are the air bottles that we use on our breathing equipment. We have to replace 9 of them. We have to replace personal protective equipment, which has reached its end of life. We actually decreased our request from the 5-year plan by about $6,000 because we realized now that we don't need as much as we had planned. Radio replacement is for pagers. We did do a big 2-way VHF radio replacement that the town paid for, but it did not include pagers. And pagers have a life cycle, and when they break or are unrepairable, we buy new ones. Fire station alert system. This basically turns the lights on and makes noise for the guys that are working. So when there's a call, they're notified of it no matter where they are in the building. The current system is old and unrepairable. I actually have 2 of them, and we have to cannibalize one for parts in order to repair the current one. So also in regard to the regional dispatch system, this system will tie in neatly with their system. So they have the backbone of infrastructure at dispatch, and this is basically just the satellite system that would be wired into the firehouse. Fire hose replacement, we've been able to also drop that from our estimated long-term cost by about half. We have lost very little hose in the past year. When we tested to destruction, and we didn't lose any hose this year. So we just have to buy stuff that for the hose that's just needs to be replaced just due to age. Most of the hose we have is 20 to 25 years old. We take good care of it, and it lasts a pretty long time. Tools and equipment, this is something we buy every couple of years. We have the new rescue truck coming in. Some of the equipment that's on the current rescue truck has reached the end of life and has to be repaired. And plus we have things like chainsaws and other pieces of equipment, lights that need to be replaced, and it comes out of that line. And the last item is water supply improvement. We also dropped that by about $3,000 because we have unspent money from previous years. The Fire Marshal's office has done a good job. We plan on installing 2 new dry hydrants this year. We also repaired one. We're going to pull one, the West Road Bridge that is now being replaced is going to have a dry hydrant incorporated into the new bridge. And we're also going to build a dry hydrant. We're trying to build a dry hydrant in the Dan's Highway area. We've had a property owner that's been very cooperative, and we're trying to figure out the best place to place it and try and figure out how much it's going to cost. As you're aware, we've had a couple of bad fires in that part of town, and the neighbors realized that there's a need for more water, and they stepped up and they're doing the right thing. And that's kind of where we are for the capital budget, $66,000, which is down from some of the years when we have to buy a new truck. And does anybody have any questions?
I've got one, Chief, for fiscal year 23. How firm are you on having to have a new pumper?
The truck that we want to replace had a 20-year lifespan. We've extended it to about 26 years.
Okay.
The way we've used the truck, it's not used daily. It's a water supply truck. We take very good care of it, but it's past its life expectancy, and we've been able to stretch it out just with the fact of the way we use it. And the truck is in good shape right now. If we get the money in the next budget, as you're aware, when we buy a fire truck, it usually takes 18 to 24 months for delivery. So that's how far out it will be when it gets replaced, if it is funded in the next budget cycle.
Okay.
Is it really a 2-year funding though? I wonder.
I'm sorry.
Is it normal? Can we split that over the 2 years? If you want money up front in year one to get on the list, right? To get billed and get a commitment, and then we owe the rest when it comes, and that could be 2 years, over 2 years.
That would be fine. Any way you want to do the money, we've tried that in past years, and finance basically said that they didn't want to do that. Maybe even there are some towns that put money in the budget every single year for a truck replacement. So maybe $100,000 a year for 5 years, and then they would have a lot of money in the 5th year to buy a new truck. But in past years, we've been told that that's not a good idea, so we never pursued it.
Yeah. Well, we can look at it next year. It's not a priority, but anyway, something to think about.
So with the Merritt Village / View project, they got a variance from P&Z that enabled a 4th story. So it's a higher residential building than most other buildings in town. Was there a need for a new ladder truck to accommodate that higher building, or was that just a suburban legend?
No, we've always had a ladder truck. The ladder truck we have right now works fine and would be useful for that building project. Yeah, we've already even drawn out in our pre-plans. We know exactly where we're going to park it depending on where in the facility that there's a problem, but it's fully sprinklered. It's a very safe building. The garage is sprinklered. All the living units are sprinklered. If there should be a fire emergency in the building, we anticipate that it shouldn't get out of the unit of origin. So we would need the ladder truck, but not in a huge way. I was really concerned when it was under construction because you've seen stuff on video of these big housing buildings that have been burned down when they're under construction, and that would have been a disaster. But now that it's fully sprinklered, I'm very comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Anything else tonight?
Just one quick question for you, Chief, which is, so the delayed delivery on the rescue truck, I'm just wondering how confident are people on the new revised delivery date, and what sort of complications, if any, does that cause that we as a board might want to be aware of, if any?
I think that they told us September. I wouldn't be surprised if it was ready in August. They're making great progress. I've been up to the factory 3 times since they started building the body. They're making great progress. I think they just want to be safe. We didn't have a delivery date in the contract. They gave us an estimated time, but they actually were hit hard by COVID with their staff. And there was also a problem with the design of the chassis, which was straightened out. And there was also a problem with obtaining the proper kind of stainless steel that the body is going to be made out of. So that had to be ordered and back ordered. So that caused a little delay too. It was really something that couldn't be controlled, and it's not something that's a big problem for us.
And for purposes of this board, squeezing some additional useful life over the existing rescue truck through August or September is not an issue, yeah?
It is not an issue. The truck we've been putting more money than we like to in repairs in the current rescue truck, but that's what we need to do. Highway department has done most of the work for us, which is great. So that cuts down our expenses. We just really have to buy parts, and they provide the labor to do the repairs. So it's worked out very well for us.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's an example, I think, of a capital item going over 2 fiscal years. So I don't know what we bonded for. I could ask Linda, but doesn't really matter. But just something to keep in mind. It takes over a year to order, secure, and usually get these products. So it's a 2-year item. Anyway, not a big deal. We'll figure it out. Other questions for the chief? Bless you, Tom. No questions? You can, if you could stop sharing your presentation, maybe we can see if there are any questions.
I can figure out how to do that. I'm not an expert on this. There you go.
Kind of bizarre.
Got it done. Anything else, anyone? Okay. Great job. Thanks for the stuff in advance too, by the way. That was helpful.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Tiger, over to you. This was a follow-up, I think, from our conversation on Tuesday.
That's correct. I think it was just to review the our revenues for the year.
Two items. I
Just
think it was the revenues as well as the, there was a discussion about whether or not to add a half FTE or a full-time FTE to your cohort. I don't know if that was going to be now or we're going to discuss.
We can do that. We can do both. It's fine. You want to do revenues first, nice and easy?
Yeah. Sure. Is Linda pulling it up or are you?
I can go either.
If you've got it, whoever's ready.
Yeah.
I
go for it, Tiger.
We pay this committee by the hour, so
one click away. Sorry, it's one click away. So we'll just go through the transfer station ones. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
All right. So the only thing we had was, in essence, the largest change we had was in our tipping fees. We had originally written down $325. That was an inadvertent error. It should have been $425 for the what we expect to receive this year. Just to give you an idea, as far as where we are in COVID, we're about 500, 600 tons over our normal receipts at this time of year. We kind of exceeded that at the end of the fiscal year, fiscal 20, and this year we're above that again, and we anticipate that that's going to extend into next year as well. Usage at the transfer station is up, so we're seeing an increase in garbage coming in because people are living at home more. A little bit difficult to determine. We have 11, 12 haulers in town, 8 of which come to the station, and 7 are kind of dedicated to the station, and 1 floats in and out. But we feel, given the fact that people are still going to be home throughout a half a year, we're going to be looking at an increase there. Sticker fees are down slightly. We had originally anticipated the fee being $75 across the board for everyone. And then it was during discussions later on, it was determined that we would charge $75 for somebody who does not have a hauler and $45 for someone that does. Excuse me. And right now, through our sales right now, we're finding about a 65-35 split, 60-40, 65-35 split between people who do not have a hauler and people who do, as far as what's coming in. So that's why you're seeing a little adjustment in that number going down year over year. And there's, as far as our fees themselves for, excuse me, for engineering, what have you, we're looking at everything staying flat. Sorry, I'm trying to find it right now. But we don't have a change per se year over year in those. Very minimal fees that we charge for reviews and things like that, street opening permits, things of that nature. So if you want to talk Guy, that'd probably be the best thing to talk about, the addition of an additional man at the Parks Department.
Hey, Tiger, super quick question at the transfer station. Is it again, we use the urban legend myth. Are people not getting passes and just dropping stuff off? Do we have any real issue with that? People have questioned whether that's
a myth.
Good.
It's a myth. We monitor that. We monitor that pretty tightly. The online sticker system, it started off, we had a couple of glitches in the beginning, mostly with our senior population because they're not the best at using a computer. But now that we've got everybody in the system, it's working out quite well. Once we gave assistance to some of those who just weren't that computer savvy, it's worked out quite well. But yeah, that's a myth.
Good.
We watch you have the same clientele day after day, right? We know the people that are coming in, right? So if there's somebody different or new, so you pay attention to that, and the guys are pretty good at that. The only thing I didn't cover was the sewer fees. Sorry, the sewer fees will be right now we're up year over year as far as our septic hauling by about $21,000. It's actually 21%, which turns out to be $21,000, right? We're taking in about an additional $50,000 so far, but it's costing us about $29,000 to process that out and ship it out, so to speak. So it's a net of about $21,000 to date. So year over year, we'll see a slight increase in that. Our nitrogen credits probably remain the same, around in the 40 range as we talked about yesterday or the day before. Any other questions on fees themselves? All right, so the discussion we had was whether or not we felt full-time individual or part-time individual. We went back and did an analysis. There is a savings on outside contractors for both, whether it be a full-time individual or part-time staffer. We are feeling that still difficult to quantify. So since there's a difficulty in quantifying savings, whether or not it would be better to say increase the outside services lines instead of hiring a full-time employee, what we would prefer to do is test the water on hiring someone part-time at approximately $45,000 for the year, and then see exactly what that savings would be. You know, as we bring a man on, we can test him, see if he's worthy, so to speak, and then we don't have to hire him full, you know, for the entire year. We could hire him when we're busiest, say spring, fall, winter, for shoveling, things of that nature, and then we can give you a better idea moving forward as to, yes, we're seeing a definitive difference with the additional manpower, or possibly we want to look at some targeted approaches as far as outside contractors and targeting some of the areas of concern. I think that you know, before we get into hiring someone and then we have someone and then it's difficult for me to quantify, I'd rather, I don't want to say dip my toe in the water, but dip my toe in the water. I never want to say no to somebody, but it's, you know, I said it to the liaisons. I've been here 22 years. I've never been asked what it means to add a guy. I've always been asked what it means to take a guy away. So it's a little bit harder to make that decision or make that quantification. So
I think, and I know Amy's been working on this, I guess maybe to hear from Amy too, but what we got to make sure we understand what problem we're solving, right? What service aren't we getting? What park isn't getting cleaned? What grass isn't getting, whatever that problem is, I think is the way to really evaluate this. But your approach makes sense. Start with part-time, a person, you know, and part-time, and then you can decide from there. I mean, is that what the liaisons are suggesting as well?
Well, I will just say, because I was one of the liaisons, that, you know, very clear, if Tiger hasn't made it clear enough, you know, he wasn't asking for this. This just came up with our probing and asking the questions and coming to the realization that in order to achieve the same outcome year after year does not require the same input. You know, quite the contrary. We've all been sort of educated by Tiger over the years of, you know, the asphalt we buy isn't the same quality, or we can't do this or that, and things just require more and more in order to achieve the same outcome. And so we started to have this. We kind of bumped into this historical, you know, we thought we were going to get an extra person when Irwin came online, et cetera, and so forth. But when we came in there, it really kind of seemed to us that in connection with this general idea of we need to be doing more weeding because the herbicides we use, you know, the weeds grow back faster, and we need to be doing more in this. There was also the realization by the liaisons that in many respects, oftentimes when we're faced with a number of the capital projects that we all kind of are behind and look like good ideas, we're faced with a bandwidth issue, which is, well, do we really think Tiger and his team can get to this and get this done when we're appropriating the money, and how to stack all those things up on the schedule? And so it seemed to us that a part-time or full-time person made perfect sense. Because as we know, you know, Tiger has a long track record of doing very good things and moving around manpower and making this stuff work. And there's no shortage of examples of where him and the highway department or other parts are helping all the other departments around town. So if there was a part-time or full-time equivalent that we're adding to the budget, that seemed sensible to us.
Yeah. And to pony back on what Tom was saying, stuff continues to get added. It's great. We have Bristol, beautiful, brand new. Everything's beautiful when it's brand new. That's another thing that has to be taken care of. And I think we lose track of how much park and public assets that we have to take care of. And, you know, I wasn't around when they cut the person way back when. And it's just, there's a lot of things that you're not necessarily going to be able to quantify. It's hard to quantify an unknown, that if you have someone who can get in there and fix something before the masonry goes.
Right.
So
right. Okay.
I don't think people should look at this like, wow, we're going to save this much in outside services. It's more maintaining our capital plan. Everyone gets very excited about adding to our capital plan, but we got to give people the resources to keep it up.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. I think it's time to evaluate. All right. Well, I think if the request is this part-time resource, go ahead, Neil. You got a question?
I just think we got to emphasize your point, which is we have to know what it's targeted to. Like, I'm just not clear on this multi-talented person that does everything. You know, is it going to be a remedial person, a person who floats and all that? I like the tiptoe in the water thing because it's a way to sample that. But we really need to know better than about the tasks that are going to be done. And I know Tiger will do that.
Yeah, exactly. Good man.
We had input from John on what to expect from this additional resource. And I don't know, Tiger, do you have that to share?
Well, in essence, he'll be a member of our park staff. So right. we were looking at, having the added manpower actually would reduce overtime costs on snow shoveling, right? You got an extra guy working with you the entire time. The entire crew then reduces time frame, right? So we have that savings. We have a savings on whereby we were looking at summertime weeding. We might be able to take out that outside service because we'll have that other individual to help us during that. Instead of, we'll still need the spring and fall because that's our busy time. But in the summer, that extra application that we're doing in the summer, those kind of things. So we're looking at all those options. When we clear a stone wall, we'll be able to continue to have that stone wall cleaned and nice and beautified. As Amy mentioned, Bristol's going to come online. We're going to have an additional park to maintain.
We also talked about an additional $25,000 in tree work would allow us one more tree contract.
That's a separate discussion.
It is a separate discussion, but it's all part of the same framework of, just the maintenance is exactly that. It is maintenance. You're not going to go, wow, you're not going to walk in and see some, significant change like you are in a new Bristow. But after a while, it really adds up. I mean, the tree work is just huge between fallen trees, especially in Waveney and limbs. And you can't just rely on Eversource. It's just not enough.
So just to make sure I understand the request, there's an additional cost for this part-time person, and you guys have worked out what that number is, and that will be added back into your operating.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. On the additional tree cost, I thought the selectmen added money for trees.
Selectmen added $20,000 to the tree maintenance line item. That's correct.
Okay.
They did do that.
Okay. You're not adding 20,000 more, or are you?
There was a discussion towards the tree maintenance line item is more towards pruning and fertilizing, and then tree planting, mostly on maintenance, not removal. The other discussion was that right now he puts out about 12 bids a year, right? An additional 25,000 would give us one more bid a year, approximately. And then
I guess a couple questions. One, do the liaisons, you guys got your head around that? We can't all redo this for you. Do you support that additional tree work? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, I think we all did. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I would say, I just think, and I'm not trying to spend crazy amounts of money, but I think you need to put it in perspective. It's got cut back. I think it was 20% the budget from what it used to be. About
it was 550.
It was 550, and now the number is now. Correct me. What's the number right now?
400.
400. Okay, so we had a pretty significant cut in this years ago, and 400 a couple years ago is not buying the same amount now. And the trees are continuing to grow. And it just seems that it's one of those things. It's kind of like what Bob Hamill was saying about, oil goes up and we do as much paving. So we aren't even keeping pace.
Well, it's also, it's a safety item.
Yeah.
Between the ones that have fallen, the ones that are about to fall, and the ones that we can't look around and see traffic. Okay. So I just want to make sure that's the recommendation from the liaisons. And I think this, I'm getting a lot of head nodding. So we'll add that back to the tree budget. Another, did I say 23 or another 25? 25. Okay. All right. All right. And Josh and Linda, you guys got that?
Thank you very much.
What's the amount? What are we budgeting now for the part-time person? It's without benefits? 40?
Well, it was 45 on the part-time line, and then there would be a commensurate add for Social Security and such.
Okay.
And what was the contract services line remaining whole?
Yeah, it was either going to be
we should leave that. Jesus,
it was either going to be a 55-10 split or just 45 for the part-time. We felt let's just go 45 for the part-time.
Okay. You know. All right. These aren't a lot of money, a lot of discussion about 10s and 20s, but some of these things really do matter, like the generators, like the sign, like this. So
no, we appreciate those ads too. Those were very
huge.
Nice ads.
Okay.
Very needed.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, everybody.
No, thank you very much.
All right, good work. Really good work. Okay. Thanks, Tiger. To the police. Chief. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you folks?
Good,
different format than years previous, but I'll push through. I have a PowerPoint to share, so I'm going to do that right now.
Thank you. And thanks again for having it posted early.
Of course. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I like to say that 2020 was a year of 3 Ps, the pandemic, protests, and police accountability. And we're going to talk a little bit about all those as we push through the presentation. First thing I'm going to do is talk about animal control. Then I'm going to talk about your return on investment. What money are you spending? What we're accomplishing? Great work we're doing. We're going to talk about some 2020 highlights, some 2021 goals. Then we're going to talk about police capital and police operating. So you folks can stop me at any time, but I'm going to try to be as efficient as I can as I move through the presentation. So we're very thoughtful in building our budget, as you folks know. I try to think about, I'm a taxpayer too, and I spend the money carefully and I ask for exactly what I need, nothing more, to run our operations. And that's exactly how we build our budget every year. Animal control. So that doesn't make you smile, nothing will, right? Those are those puppies that we had. And now they're in good homes and they're well cared for. And that's part and parcel of the excellent work that our animal control officer does. And of course, our officers support her, but she does the lion's share, no pun intended, of animal control work. So kudos to her. And that's your return on investment right there, those puppies. Animal control, capital request is 0. Budget request is 103,364. It's a 5.1% decrease compared to last fiscal year. And that's a result of cutting entirely part-time animal control hours. And that's a result of being very difficult to find qualified people to fill that position. And our animal control officer, Allison, she is very comfortable with cutting that for now. And she's she feels good that she'll be able to perform most of the work and our officers will be able to support her as they're able to. So there's not a need for those part-time animal control hours anymore. So we cut that. Wow. Let's go on to the police department. So what's your return on investment? I'm going to show you.
Hey, Chief Krolikowski, just a quick question on animal control. Are you going to talk about the shelter now or later, or how do you want to handle that? I know that's come up. Question.
I am not. Our police commission just discussed it last meeting. So we're in the early stages of talking about possibilities. I engaged with a vet in town and I don't have a proposal yet.
Okay.
But that's a possibility. We don't know yet if that will meet all the town's needs.
Okay.
There's lots of things that are up in there, so I think it's premature to talk about that.
Okay, no, fair enough. And just so people know, I think there's multi-town ideas that are out there and, you know, a shelter here in town and all kinds of things and some private funding. So, okay, early days, but that's probably something to touch base on in a few months, it sounds like.
Of course.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's a little snapshot of all our major calls for service, 2019 versus 2020. Note 47% increase in psychiatric calls, And I believe that's largely due to COVID. Lots of people are stressed or homebound, more or less. Lots of people that have underlying behavioral health issues, those issues are coming out, and those are causing lots of need for help. And we're frankly the people that they call first, and then we can build other resources in as we need be. So that's one of our focus areas. I'll talk a little bit about that as we move through the presentation. Good news is last year, motor vehicle accidents dropped substantially. That's largely due to traffic declines, but they're still down as of today compared to last year. So we continue to see that trend of accidents trending down. I can't complain about that. So that's a good thing.
Can you just go back to that page? That's a great page. Thank you for this. I think I asked for this last year, and this is terrific.
Yep.
Any question? I mean, I guess it's not surprising in some categories, as you say, because of decreased traffic. Of course, larcenies 108 up, right? A couple of things are up noticeably. So, okay, this is really, really helpful.
Good, glad. Talking about things that are up, sadly, is larcenies from vehicles, 48 versus 32. And that's a little snapshot of the town. So it's pretty centered in the center of town, but there are some outskirt incidents in areas that are not directly in the center of town where we've had thefts from vehicles. And largely those are thefts from unlocked vehicles. But we've seen a very small percentage of incidents where the vehicle is forcibly entered. And typically the people that forcibly enter vehicles are professionals that are coming from out of state and are targeting typically parks and general public areas during the day, more or less, because they know that folks are going to be leaving valuables in the cars, and they take the valuables, and then they usually steal the identity after that and sell it. So that's a big concern, certainly, and that's something we're focusing on. And to add to the concern, for the first time in the last few months, we've seen guns stolen from vehicles. That one vehicle was forcibly entered and the other was unlocked, and guns were stolen from it. So now these criminals that are coming from out of state, in some respects, we just arrested a gentleman from Newark, New Jersey in a stolen car that crashed the car, stole another car in town and crashed that car. Good thing he's not a good driver in the snow. And he was taken into custody and ultimately released for pending court case. But it's unusual to see that happen. So sadly, it's mostly underage kids that are doing this based on statistics in the state and who we've seen get arrested. But there's an outlier in that it's a professional, an older person coming specifically into town because they know it's prime pickings per se. And, people don't be fooled. These folks talk to one another. They communicate on social media. They tell each other about things that are good and availability and possibilities. And that's a lot of the reason why you're seeing this kind of a broad attack, if you will, on Fairfield County by these groups. Stolen vehicles, 27 versus 10. And I remember a time when we would have 2 or 3 stolen vehicles a year. So it's substantial. And typically these vehicles are recovered within days, typically in a city, and dumped in an area. But we had one instance where a vehicle was recovered. It was a chop shop operation in Hartford, and one of our vehicles from town was recovered there. So that's an outlier too. But typically it's a joyride type instance. These kids are pretty reckless. Usually they're under the influence. Sometimes they're armed, and they're pretty dangerous. And that's why, I can't emphasize enough, please lock your vehicle, take your keys inside, don't leave your valuables in your car, because we're attracting people to town that are committing crimes. And it's a preventable crime, in my opinion. So PD highlights again in 2020, we had a successful law enforcement audit. Hundreds of files were reviewed to ensure we're within standard. And as you know, we're one of only 3 accredited agencies in Fairfield County, and there's roughly 17 agencies in the county. So that's a big accomplishment, and we've been accredited for more than 27 years or so. And very small number nationally are accredited, less than 5%. And interestingly enough, one of the best aspects of the police accountability law is that they're requiring departments to become CALEA accredited. But it sounds like that's going to be revised and amended, and that won't be a requirement anymore, because I'm confident that because we're accredited, we're a great agency, and it forces us to do things that we normally wouldn't do, and allows us to perform a very high level of service to our town. So that's something I'm very proud of. More highlights, certainly our response to the COVID-19 pandemic was unprecedented. We've never faced anything like that before. And, I can't thank my officers enough for the great work they've done and how they responded to it and how well they handled the challenges associated with that. Related to that, came pretty much back to back, was calls for police reform, compliance with the police accountability law, which is, in my opinion, one of the most comprehensive laws in the nation, and lots of compliance issues that we have to deal with. And unfortunately, some pretty substantial costs this year, and ongoing years there'll be costs as well. So that's the challenge of that whole aspect of the police accountability law. In 2020, we continue to work the murder, missing person investigation, Jennifer Dulos. And if you follow the news, everyone did an exceptional job on that. Can't thank the state police enough, FBI, U.S. Marshal Service, our officers, everyone worked as a team and did the best they could with a very difficult situation. As I mentioned before, drop in motor vehicle accidents. A lot of people don't realize how diverse our staff is. We have roughly 20% of our staff is Hispanic and African-American, and we have the most females ever in history, and the most Hispanic officers and the most African-American officers in history. So that's something we're very proud of too. So I think it makes our department an exceptional place when you have all those different backgrounds and viewpoints. And another historical thing that we managed was peaceful protests. Our town's never seen that before, and I'm going to highlight that in a second. So if you didn't see it, that's what it looked up coming up South Avenue. Pretty incredible. And that was kind of I think a telling moment for a lot of people in town. I suspect the vast majority of people that marched in this protest weren't from town. But I can tell you that one thing that kind of made me really proud of everything our department stands for was at the end of this march, I was talking to some people, and a gentleman approached me and he said, I'm not from this town, but if every department was like your department, we wouldn't have any problems in our nation. And that's something I think we could all be really proud of, and maybe kind of take pause and appreciate really everything that we do. That's another view from in front of our department. Pretty incredible there. I think a healing moment for a lot of people. Nope, there was no fights, there was no disruption, very peaceful. Everybody came, marched, and then pretty much went their ways. And pretty exceptional in comparison to what you've seen happen in other parts of our nation. And that's kind of what we do too. That officer's helping change a tire. Those are the kinds of things we like to do if we can help people and we have the time to do it. Great to see people that say they love us, because some people just don't. And I think the vast majority does of this town, but there are some people that just don't like the police of our nation, which kind of makes me sad. But it's good to see people like this support us. And kind bars, those were donated by Acme, and very nice gesture by the community to donate those, because I think they appreciated what we were going through and they wanted to support us in a small way. So in 2020, we also strengthened our crisis intervention training. And I'll talk a little bit about an incident that happened several days ago, which you probably didn't see in the news. It was in the social media, but pretty much an individual called the police, threatened to be in possession of a firearm. And when the officers arrived, threatened that the person had a firearm, wouldn't show the person's hands, and was asking for the officers to shoot the person. And the good news is the officers handled it perfectly. They ended up entering the vehicle. No one was hurt, no one was arrested, but the individual is now getting much needed help. So that's exactly the way these incidents should happen, if at all possible. And certainly kudos to our officers. They'll be getting an award in the near future for great work related to that. So training does pay off, and something like that pays off in multiples. And we completed training and issuing the bowler wrap to our crisis intervention officers. That's something we're the only department in Connecticut so far that has that. other departments are looking at it, but I'm not aware of any that have issued those out. And once again, that's a less lethal device that shoots a Kevlar cable out to wrap around a person so they can be restrained and then taken into custody so the officer or the person does not get hurt. And I mentioned previously, there's a 47% increase in psychiatric calls. We investigated many complex crimes. I think everybody is surprised at the crimes that happen in our town. But you know, we're part of the community, and things happen in Connecticut in the general area that we're not immune from. Lots of complex frauds and thefts, and lots of fraud during COVID. People are being targeted because everybody knows they're home, and the criminals are taking advantage of that. Some pretty complex, sophisticated retail crime occurring in town. We had a bank robbery occur. That's an unusual instance, especially that the person was armed. But the good news is very soon you're going to see some progress on that. Exceptional work by our officers again. And we arrested an adult predator related to a juvenile victim. And that's the bank robber. So if you guys know who he is, give me a call later, let me know. But we know, so he's gonna face justice very soon. And that gentleman, that tells you what can happen when social media comes into play with a juvenile being pretty much groomed by this person. And the case was taken over as a federal case. So now he's probably going to end up doing a pretty substantial amount of time in federal prison for the crimes he did and he came to town to commit. So that's just the risk of things that can happen in our town, despite how safe it is and how comfortable everybody is. And PD goals for 2021, we'll talk about. Work closely with our schools to minimize availability of drugs. Hopefully we'll be able to, once COVID kind of normalizes, if that ever happens this year, we'll go back to the table and try to finalize that K-9 in Schools MOU. We continue to enhance our community policing outreach, Coffee with a Cop, Civilian Police Academy. And recently, because we're fully staffed, we were able to put our community impact officer back into the center of town, and she's doing great work there. I'm very, very happy with that. We were able to do that. And of course, compliance with the police accountability law. In 2020, we'll continue to enhance officer safety and use of force training and relentlessly educate our residents about crime prevention. Lock your car, report suspicious activity, please. Conduct targeted enforcement at high accident locations, enhance crisis intervention, that's a continuing thing, and move our PD building renovation project forward. Thanks to First Selectman Moynihan for moving that forward. The work's starting, lots of work to do, but I'm very grateful that that's happening because it's well needed. And of course, success, our building committee is now formed and working, so thank you for that. And hopefully our building won't get all that much older before we decide what we're going to do. Capital summary. Our PD capital request for FY22 is 364,750. It's 2 vehicles, taser replacements, bulletproof vest replacements, some video and recording equipment replacement. And the bulk of it, though, the $226,000 of it is related to police accountability and the need to issue body cameras to every officer, including myself, and put in-car cameras in all of our marked vehicles. So that's a requirement. We don't have a choice there. As you may know, we were one of the first agencies in Fairfield County to implement body cameras about 6 or 7 years ago. And it's a great tool, exceptional. Every department should have it. But because of the requirements of the law, we now have to have in-car cameras. And our experience with in-car cameras has not been great. They're very expensive, doesn't film a whole lot of the interaction typically. But because we have to have body and in-car cameras, they have to coordinate and they have to transition. So when the officer makes a stop in a car, the in-car camera starts filming. Once he goes up to the car, the body camera starts filming. Then he goes back to the car. So there's a transition period there. So that's why we have to invest in a whole new system that incorporates both body and in-car camera systems. As you know, our vehicles are offices for our officers, so it's critical to keep our vehicles safe and in the best shape possible. We've fully moved to Ford SUVs, which have been very reliable and safe in all weather conditions. So we're very happy about that. And 2 vehicles is in line with our approved 5-year capital plan. So it's typically 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. So that's our plan, and it's keeping our fleet very reliable and safe. So I'm happy about that. There's a little snapshot there that lets you know ideal replacement 80,000 miles. So we're very conservative, and we'll be able to move several of these vehicles off once our new vehicles that have been ordered get online for FY21, and then FY22 will let us replace 2 more of those vehicles. So we're very comfortable to say that our fleet's going to be very healthy after that. And note that we've kept the Crown Victorias because they've been very reliable vehicles. We got rid of all the Dodges because they're not reliable, and we've talked about in meetings past. And that's a little benchmarking, lets you know, shows you how conservative we are with our replacements. We're 2 to 3, Darien's 3 to 5, and Wilton is 5 to 6. So 2 vehicles is a minimum number that will help meet our needs and keep our fleet safe. I'll get into operating. If anybody has any capital questions, I'm glad to answer those. Otherwise, I'll move to operating.
Any questions on those items? I think not. I think we can move over to operating.
Excellent. Okay, so FY22 operating, we have a 0.9% increase as compared to FY21. That's our request. Very conservative increase. Like I said, we try to be very careful in whether we build our budget, what we ask for, and frankly, what we deliver to the town. I think it's pretty exceptional, the services we provide. I'm very proud of that. FY21, we had a new line called salary offset. We're continuing that again in FY22. And as I sit here, we are about 0.5% under budget where we should be. So we're very comfortable in how we're spending and how FY21 is going. So I'm very comfortable with this request for FY22. That'll let you know how we build our budget, decreases and increases based on the needs, contractual, operational needs that we have, and things that we believe we can cut and still perform the great work that our officers do. Right now, 8 members of our department are eligible for retirement. So that's why it's really important to keep our staffing levels up to fully staffed, which we are right now. Typically, we're not fully staffed very long. We have an officer going on military leave for about a year at this moment. So that will decrease our staff, but otherwise we're in a full complement. So like I said, operating budget allows for best complement of 47 sworn officers. It takes us roughly 9 to 12 months to recruit and train an officer and get them qualified to be on their own. So that's why it's critical to keep filling those pipelines when we're able to find a qualified person to hire. I mentioned that previously. And that gives you the idea of our complexities of our staffing. And we're in a very challenging hiring environment. I think it's made even more challenging with police accountability because lots of people maybe don't want to be a police officer anymore because of the scrutiny that our nation is facing. And the good news is we've been able to recruit exceptional people, and I'm confident we'll continue to do that. So I'm not concerned about that, but it just becomes a challenge as we move forward in the future. Now we'll talk about overtime. So another benchmark, typically nationwide, most departments spend about 18% of their aggregate salaries. We're less than 11%. So once again, we're very conservative in our spending, and we're in line with comparable police departments in our area. So we're very conservative in that regard. And that's a question I always ask myself every year. What's the bare minimum that we need to do all the great work that we do? And that tells you how careful we are with our spending. This for FY22, we're asking for 530. And as I sit here, we are projecting to be under budget for FY21 based on our spending to date. So hopefully that trend will continue. And you can see we had a spike there as a result of the Doulos investigation, but that's money well spent given the success of that relatively to the tragic facts of it. And this is our police officer scheduling system. You approved that a number of years ago. And that allows us to track exactly why we're spending, how our staffing levels are, where our deficiencies are. And this is about 61% of the reasons about why we're spending overtime. Very typical reasons: shift shortage, training, administrative, and sick calls and things like that. It's been an exceptional tool. So thanks again for approving the funding for that. And that's our goal every year: adopt a realistic and attainable overtime budget. And I think we always do that. And even though I said FY21 forecast is 540, I looked just today and we're tracking less than that. So I suspect we'll be under budget slightly for FY21. So that's why it makes me comfortable to ask for 530 for FY22. Anyone have any questions?
Okay. Well, first, I'll just say thank you again. I mean, not only to you, but you and your officers. You do a great job. It's extremely professionally run. Terrific budget presentation, as always. Great overview, and I appreciate all the transparency.
My pleasure.
Yeah, great job. Questions? You want to actually maybe just stop sharing, and then we can see the group and see if they have any questions.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah, go ahead,
it's Michael. Yeah, sorry, my video's not working, but I just want to commend Leon and the whole police team this whole year for COVID, and the whole the protest thing could have turned ugly, and it did not. And kudos to you and your team for making our town such a great town due to you and your leadership.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. You know, I don't do anything alone. You know, there's no I in team. So that's what we are, a team. And even though we don't agree all the time on things, we work exceptionally well, especially in crisis situations. And I can't be any prouder of everybody that works so well together.
Great.
Leon, if you'll stop sharing, we can get a view of the gallery better.
Yep.
Or maybe Tucker, you can.
Let me do that. Just trying to do that.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
I just wanted to say, first of all, I was in that protest, and one of the highlights of the protest was your speech. When you spoke very eloquently, and it was good to hear from a police officer your perspective, and you were also very understanding with the protesters. So I thought that was great what you did that day.
Thank you.
My question is regarding equipment and ammo and weapons. So I see that you have $23,500 in the budget, and is that mostly ammo or mostly weapons?
It's the bulk of it is ammo. There's a percentage of it that is we have to pay for range use. We have two different ranges that we use. There's an outdoor range and an indoor range. And then, in fact, this kind of leads us into an invitation to all of you folks. I'll push it out to the distribution list. We bring a trailer on board. I believe it's April this year. And for several days, the trailer is a live fire trailer with scenario based. So officers need to talk through various scenarios that are actually live being played in the trailer. And then they either shoot or they don't shoot, and they have to make critical decisions. And you don't have to have any kind of firearms experience. And I encourage all of you to go through it, because you'll put yourself into the shoes of a police officer. And, you know, I can't say it enough that most professions, you can make a mistake and you have a second chance at it. More often than not, in a deadly force or use of force encounter, you have to make a split-second decision, and you can't take that back. So that's why it's critical for us to continue the training. And so the bulk of that line is ammunition, range use, and there's also some supplies related to simunitions, which is a simulated ammunition that pretty much fires it's a dry, I guess, wax dart kind of thing, if I want to explain it simply. And it allows officers to engage in scenario-based training so that they can make decisions in simulated situations. So that if a real life situation happens, the likelihood that they'll make a smart decision and the right decision is much higher. So that's the part and parcel of that line.
Just as a quick follow-up. So I would imagine that officers have not discharged their weapons on duty very frequently. Is that true? I mean, I mean, in the last 10 years, have there been any occurrences like that where an officer has had to discharge their weapon in the line of duty?
Other than taking down injured animals, no. Thankfully, it's been several decades since officers discharged their firearms in I guess in a dynamic situation. So we haven't had to do that. It's not uncommon for officers to have to draw their firearms and have them displayed, but it's very unusual and rare for them to actually fire. So that's something I'm thankful for, and I'm going to knock on wood right now. So.
All of us should.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just going to say, I actually took the police up on the offer to try the simulation, and it is an impressive set of scenarios, and you realize quickly that you need a tremendous amount of training to not make mistakes, and firing live ammo in practice is hugely important. And I'm surprised, frankly, that $23,000 buys enough ammunition and weapons to have us, mission ready. And I was just so impressed with the entire practice facility, that trailer. And I'm sure it's not cheap, but it's not a nice world out there, and it's a good thing to have well trained officers that are you get rusty shooting. I'm actually an enthusiast myself, and anyway, I don't wish that those scenarios to become real for anybody. It was really, really enlightening to me. It's not like watching a police movie. Anyway, $23,000 seems like it's another case where I'm worried about inflation, because ammunition prices are going up meaningfully, and so it's money well spent. Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, Chief, I just wanted to say I saw the downtown patrol officer downtown a couple of days ago. I was very, very glad to see that you could reinstitute that, but I was amazed at how much stuff that officer has to carry around. She had not only the normal patrol officer, Sam Brown belt with all the accoutrements, but then she had this huge backpack on too. I have no idea what was in the backpack, but it looked very heavy.
Right. Yeah, it's really pretty striking to realize how much equipment a typical patrol officer carries. It's many pounds of gear that's required, and so certainly it's not an easy thing to do. And imagine chasing someone on foot with all of that on. So that's another challenge.
Yeah, I just have to add too. I worked with all three of our community impact officers ever since the program started, and they've all been terrific. But she's really going the extra mile. She's just engaging with every business downtown. They all know who she is. She's created a whole database. She's doing a great job.
No doubt.
Excellent. Other comments, questions? Okay. Well, thank you. That's a great presentation, Chief. Just to let the board know, we're going to continue this conversation in executive session. And so if there aren't any other public questions, what I'm going to ask is that we have a motion to move to executive session. This is really the end of our agenda too, by the way. So Tucker, we'll really move to executive session and really end the meeting. We'll come out of executive session and actually close the meeting. But I just want you to know that's what we're going to do.
Yep.
Hey, Todd, okay. Todd, you have to invite your non-members into the executive session.
Yeah, so let's make sure we have the right role for the non-members.
So we're inviting the chief.
Chief Kolakowski.
Tiger Man. We've got Chris Kaiser, I believe, is on the call.
Paul Foley.
Paul Foley.
Is Paul on? Oh, there he is. Okay, we need a police commission member. That's Paul. Good. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
You need the deputy chief and Joe Zagorinsky.
Joe Zagorinsky.
And Tiger.
Andy Federico.
Tucker mentioned Tiger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Channel 79 drops.
They have to drop. Yep.
Yeah, they know to drop. Cloud. We are recording in regular session.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. Yeah, Tom, all in favor? Aye, opposed, none. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Chief, and everybody. Great discussion. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.